Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. Who am I? Well, I am your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, gather together as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, a little bit of pop culture, different stuff here and there, and it's always good to have you guys here as we do that. Now, listen, I am actually, I'm flying solo today. Rob is off today shooting some stuff for, he's shooting for a couple things, including he's shooting something for my documentary for me this morning too. So it's just you and I together in an intimate little setting of love. And it's going to be great because we do have a lot of things to talk about here today. We're going to talk about reports going around that Johnny Depp might be lining up to go back into Pirates of the Caribbean. We're going to talk about that and why you really shouldn't count on that at all. What would happen in movie theaters if they started charging different ticket prices depending on the movie you're going to see? We're going to talk about the new Lord and Miller animated film, Connected, that and a few things more. But before we get into all those main topics, we got one thing to talk about here off the top. And that first thing is kind of a bummer. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a little bit of a bummer to me. See, a little while ago, there was a report, and we talked about it here on this show, that Jason Statham and Kevin Hart, who of course were just together sort of in Hobbs and Shaw, they were doing a new movie together called The Man from Toronto. It's going to be a comedy, and I was excited because I thought the stylings of these two guys would work together really well. Well, forget that. Despite the fact that the movie The Man from Toronto was set to start filming in just 4 weeks, Jason Statham has, at the last minute, dropped out of the film. This report comes to us from Deadline, basically saying that they believe that one of the main things at the core of it was the fact that Jason Statham wanted the film to be more R-rated and that the studio didn't want to be. And so there's that happening. Now, on top of all that, it also describes the fact that Statham has parted ways with his agency, WME, around about the same time. Now, there's no official word that says that those two things are connected, but obviously they probably are. There's a couple of things about this. Number one, I am a big fan of Jason Statham. I've been a huge fan of his, well, ever since Snatch, obviously with his stuff in all the action films he's done. I'm a big fan. I even liked him in Meg, even though I didn't think Meg was all that great. The Crank movies he's incredible in. I'm just a fan of Jason Statham, okay? I'm just a fan of Jason Statham. And I really would have liked to see this, but I gotta wonder here, what the hell is he doing? Like, you knew if this movie was going to be an R-rated film or not, did you not, before you signed up for it? And why, like, if you get down to the moment now that it's like 4, 5, 6 weeks away from when you actually start shooting, why drop out now? Unless there was some kind of major shift at the studio. If there was some kind of major shift at the studio and they all of a sudden were saying to Jason Statham, we're not going to make the movie that you thought you were signing up for, because if they were telling him initially, yeah, this is going to be an R-rated action comedy, great. And then at the last minute, they decide to make it a PG-13 thing, which is not what Jason Statham signed up for, then I can understand him, going, well, listen, then I don't want to be a part of it. That's not kind of what I signed up to be in. I signed up to be in a different kind of movie. If that's the case, I completely understand. But as a fan of Jason Statham, I got to say, if he knew the whole time that this was going to be a PG-13 film, and he just thought he could use his weight to make them change it to an R, which I wouldn't understand that at all, well, then I got to say, what the hell are you thinking? Like, what are you doing? I don't understand it. Anyway, the bottom line is I was looking forward to seeing Kevin Hart and Jason Statham in this movie together. I thought this sounded like it could be really good, and I love the fact that Toronto is in the name of the movie, but it's not happening. Anyway, guys, what do you think about that? Maybe you didn't care about this movie. Maybe you're like me and you were pretty excited about it. Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down and out of the way, guys, let's now move on to our main topics of the day. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going over anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's absolutely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question as one of the featured topics here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Salman Shah, who writes, I wanted to see if you had heard about the open letter for No Time to Die getting delayed amidst the coronavirus outbreak. In the article, the writers calculated that 38% of Spectre's gross came from nations that have put bans on community gatherings like movie theaters. I feel like this is something to be worried about now that we could have a heavily effect on No Time to Die's box office. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, of course, No Time to Die is a film that's already been affected quite a bit by this whole situation, right? They canceled their premiere in China. They canceled their entire Chinese press tour for the film and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, this comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. And this is kind of a key paragraph here. This is very important. So this open letter was written by like the head of the biggest James Bond fan site and all this kind of stuff, and wrote this open letter. It's been getting a lot of traction. And this is the one really good point that this letter makes, in my opinion, in trying to make an argument that they should delay the release of the movie. Here's what it had to say. Looking at a potential hit on the film's box office, the letter stated that the developed nations that have banned or restricted large public gatherings to contain the community spread of the virus, including Italy, France, Switzerland, Japan, Hong Kong, and South Korea, well, when you add those up, amounted to 38% of the total global earnings for the last Bond outing, Spectre. 38%, according to these numbers, of Spectre's all-around box office came from these collective countries. If you're going to try to make a valid argument that maybe we should delay the release of this movie, the way you be effective in communicating that is by speaking the language that studios understand, which is box office. That's what they understand. And if you make an argument that, and I think they make a very good argument, that listen, we're talking about some major countries here that represented a major chunk of the last film's box office, and they are going to be very limited in what they can do at the theaters right now. Perhaps this is a good reason to say, hey, we know we got a release date for Bond No Time to Die. Maybe we should bump it off a bit. And I think that's legit. That doesn't necessarily mean if I was the head of the studio that that's what I would do necessarily, but I think they make a compelling argument. On the other side of this coin, though, is this. They go on to make other arguments that I do not believe are very valid. They go on to make other arguments about why they should delay the release of No Time to Die that I personally don't think are very valid at all. Now, this comes from the Hollywood Reporter. This says this. With a month to go before, this is right at the top paragraph. This is also from the open letter. With a month to go before No Time to Die opens worldwide, community spreads of the virus is likely to be peaking in the United States. Today, Washington declared a state of emergency. To quote M in Skyfall, how safe do you feel? And then it goes on to talk about the premiere that's going to be coming, the world premiere that's going to be coming in London. Regarding the world premiere, the writers noted that the capacity of London's Royal Albert Hall, which is where the event is due to take place, is above 5,000. Limit that affected countries are now banning from public gatherings. Just one person, they wrote in the letter, who may not even show symptoms could infect the rest of the audience. This is not the type of publicity anybody wants. Okay, so while I do contend that I think they make a very rational, sound argument about why they should delay No Time to Die by the fact that, hey, 38% of your box office is represented in these countries, maybe we should hold off. I think that's a sound argument. This one, I do not. I simply do not. Look, the population of the UK, the last I checked, is around 66 million people. And also the last time I checked, the number of cases in the UK equals 0.00%. A grand total of 85 cases. There are 85 cases of people being sick as a result of this in the UK in a population of 66 million. Now, I'm not trying to underplay it. I'm not trying to cover it up. I'm not trying to say, oh, that's nothing at all. All I'm saying is, I don't think saying we can't possibly get people together because there are 85 people out of 66 million who have this particular thing, cancel everything. Because I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness of the situation. I'm simply saying, well, by that logic, you shouldn't go to the grocery store. By that logic, I shouldn't go to Disneyland. By that logic, you shouldn't go to church on Sunday. By that logic, you shouldn't go to, the 7-Eleven to pick up whatever it is you're going there to pick up. By that logic, nobody should leave their homes at all. And so while I think on the one hand, they made a pretty good argument, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. So I don't know. That's just how I feel. What do you guys think? Listen, if you're in charge of the studio right now and you've got a choice whether to move forward with this release date or delay it, hearing the arguments out there, do you delay the release of James Bond No Time to Die? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know what you would do. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Derek Ryan, who writes, "Hey, John, have you seen the trailer for The Connected? Made by the visionary minds behind Into the Spider-Verse. Reminds me a little of iRobot, but overall a fun trailer. What did you think of the trailer? Thanks." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, very unexpectedly. I mean, I knew this was a film that was being made, but very unexpectedly, the trailer yesterday dropped for this new animated film, Connected. Now, a lot of people, including me, are kind of referring to it as Lord and Miller's Connected. But honestly, let's be clear, this movie is not directed by Lord and Miller. They are the producers on it, and that means, obviously they're involved, but just be clear, they are not the directors of this film. So let's just be clear on that. Anyway, so if you haven't had a chance to see the trailer yet, I'm fascinated by this. I got to tell you, look, because it starts off showing, this dad and one of his kids who's growing up and how they always used to be so connected to each other. But more and more, it seems to be like a societal allegory about how technology is making us more and more disconnected from each other. Because this daughter of hers who's growing up, who wants to go off to film school, she's completely obsessed with her technology, doesn't connect with her family as much, blah, 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 blah. They decide to go on a road trip together. All that kind of, and then out of nowhere, a robot apocalypse starts to happen. Out of nowhere. It's like this trailer was one kind of trailer at the beginning, and then it totally and unexpectedly changes gears in the second half of the trailer and becomes kind of crazy. And I remember watching it thinking, I'm fascinated by this on two different levels. On the one level, I'm fascinated by this because the idea of an animated film like this addressing the issues of how, and this one image is a great representation of that. Even the mom, they're sitting at the dinner table together, and instead of looking at each other or talking to each other, they're all on their phones. So it's kind of neat that an animated film would want to talk about issues like that and family issues. I think that's kind of cool, and I thought it was very charming. And then later on, it completely changes gears, becomes an iRobot, robot apocalypse kind of a scenario, which could be a lot of fun, add in the little bit of action adventure element to it too. So listen, I gotta say, I was not expecting this trailer. I was really pleasantly surprised by it. I enjoyed it. And I think it's Danny McBride does the voice of the dad in it. I'm pretty sure that was Danny McBride who does the voice of the dad. At any rate, did you guys have a chance to see this Connected trailer? I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was very pleasantly surprising. What did you think? Did you think it was great? Did you think it was not so good? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our third main topic. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by, well, look at that. It's submitted by Jack Sparrow. How fortuitous. And Jack Sparrow writes, "Hey, John and today's co-host." Well, today it's just me. Let's see. Today's co-host. I was scrolling through my feed. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Pop back up. Okay. I was scrolling through my feed to find... My screen keeps blinking out. Sorry, guys. Here is to find that we got this covered. It's reporting that in the wake of several court battles in between himself, Amber Heard, Disney is reconsidering Johnny Depp to return for the 6th Pirates movie. How accurate is this news? And what do you think the right move would be on Disney's part? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, over the past number of days, there has been a number of people and reports going around on a number of websites that Johnny Depp is once again being considered by Disney to bring him back in for another Pirates movie. Now, of course, a couple of years ago, back in 2018, it came out that Disney was looking to move on in Pirates without Johnny Depp. So anyway, and then now these reports the last couple of days have started coming out saying Disney is actually considering bringing him back. So everybody starts talking about that. Is it possible that Disney could be considering bringing Johnny Depp back. Well, it's possible, but don't count on it. Don't count on it. And here's why. When you look at all of the sites reporting that Disney is considering bringing back Johnny Depp, and you start reading them, you realize they're all quoting the same place. So the one place that this story actually got its start from, this is the originating site for this story, is We Got This Covered. Now, for those of you who do not know, We Got This Covered is, I think, statistically it's fair to say, they are the worst site on the net for starting fake rumors. There was actually a study done not too long ago on tracking 1 year's worth of scoops and breaking news that We Got This Covered did, and they found that only 2%, maybe it's like 2.3 or 2.4, but roughly 2% of the stuff they break was actually true and truth. So We Got This Covered are the ones that started this story that Disney's considering bringing back Johnny Depp. And then all the other sites that have started reporting it, they're all just quoting this site. They're all just quoting the We Got This Covered thing. Of course, they have very little to no credibility for anything like this. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible. So I instantly started to go and look at the major trades that actually have relationships with people inside Disney. So I went to The Wrap, I went to Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, all the major Entertainment Weekly, all the major trades, and none of them are reporting this. So it is safe to say at this point that you should not believe, and we should not believe, any report that says Johnny Depp is actually coming back. At this point, you should put it out of your head. Now, again, is it impossible that Disney could ever bring him back to play in a Pirates movie? Well, of course it's not impossible. They could. Tomorrow, the new CEO, Bob Chapek, he could wake up, the new CEO of Disney could wake up tomorrow and think, you know what? I'm in a Johnny Depp kind of mood. I think I want to bring Johnny back. And that could happen. All I'm saying is, right now, there is absolutely no credible information out there. There is no credible report. There is no credible story out there that this, as it's being reported right now, is true in any way, shape, or form. So it's probably safe at this point not to count or believe any of those reports or rumors. Now, there could be some people out there, and I'm sure there are, that are saying, but with everything going on in the news lately and, all the stuff going on, maybe they should bring it up. Well, you got to remember something. This is important to understand. And by the way, I really like Johnny Depp in Crimes of Grindelwald. I know a lot of people didn't like that he was cast in it. I know a lot of people didn't like the movie. I did, by the way. I know a lot of people weren't all that thrilled with him in it. I thought Johnny Depp was the best part of Crimes of Grindelwald. I really did. I thought he was the best part of the movie. I thought he was great in it. That said, we've got to remember that Johnny Depp's troubles and problems aren't based on his marriage situation. If you guys remember, back in 2018, there was, and this was big news. I remember we did stories about this and all that kind of stuff. Back in June of 2018, there was this infamous article written in Rolling Stone when they went and did a sit-down information by Stephen Roderick, who went and actually sat to Johnny Depp's house, sat down with him, and this was a really disturbing article that caused a lot of concern about Johnny Depp. And this was the type of stuff that I believe ultimately kind of led to them wanting to move on from Depp. What's come out in the last couple of years, and Depp has admitted this, I mean, Johnny Depp has, not that I think I hold any of this against him, I'm just saying, if you're going to work with him, this has been problematic. He has been somebody who suffered with a major alcohol abuse problem. There were reports that said that he drank $30,000 worth of wine a month. And when asked about it, Johnny Depp actually said, actually, it's more than that. There have been several movie projects, including one of the Pirates movies that once had to be delayed because he was on a huge drunken binge. And there are other movies that happened with What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which goes back an awful long time, but still. But this has been a consistent thing of his through his exorbitant spending, his lifestyle, all that kind of stuff. These are the types of things. Now, you add on top of that the fact that Johnny Depp, I mean, his movies that he actually leads have not done well in the past while. Like outside of Pirates of the Caribbean, when you're looking at movies like Oh, let's not hold Sherlock Gnomes against him for that, because that was an animated. That doesn't really count. But other movies he's done, like, Black Mass, which I actually liked. Mordecai, which was a terrible flop of a movie, and just a terrible movie in and of itself. City of Lies never even got a release. The Lone Ranger was one of the biggest flops. Transcendence was a huge flop. But basically, in the last number of years, films that he has been the lead for, the main guy in, other than Pirates, have not done well. So you had a lot of these things about personal problems with Johnny Depp. You had the fact that, the movies, people weren't rushing out to see his movies. And I think a lot of that, plus the fact that they had already done 5 Pirates of the I can't speak today. 5 Pirates of the Caribbean films that had him as the lead, and they were just ready to move on from. And listen, I'll say this. The last Pirates of the Caribbean film that they put out, I actually think it was the best Pirates film that they had done since the original. That's not saying much, because I think all the rest of them were trash. But I think the last Pirates of the Caribbean film they did was probably the best one they had done. Yet, I disliked the Jack Sparrow character more than I did in any of the other ones. Like, they kind of changed Jack Sparrow from, yes, this drunken, adventurer and all that kind of stuff, but at the core of it, and when you go back to the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Jack Sparrow was a pirate to be feared and respected. Yeah, he had this savvy, he had that whole thing about him, yes. But as the Pirates of the Caribbean films evolved, right up until the last one, they just turned the Johnny Depp character into a joke. Like, Johnny Depp stopped portraying the character with, yeah, he's got this exterior, but he's a cold-blooded pirate underneath that, and he's a man to be feared. That was all gone. Now he was just a clown. And anything that worked out for him was more like a Jar Jar Binks situation where, oops, he slipped, and that made the right result happen. You know what I mean? Like, he would accidentally fall into success. And I started getting frustrated with that. So honestly, while it is very weird for me to think of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie without Johnny Depp, if you're going to do another Pirates movie, it probably is time to move on to a new set of pirates. Tell a new set of stories with new adventures. You've kind of did this one with Jack Sparrow as much as you can. Now, the last movie was the lowest box office film out of all the Pirates of the Caribbean films other than the original. But it still made almost $800 million. So, I mean, there are some people talking about, oh yeah, the last Pirates movie didn't do very good. It made almost $800 million. I mean, so make no mistake, it still did real damn good. It still did really damn good. But it to be fair to its detractors, it was the lowest grossing one since the original. Okay, yeah, true, but it still made a lot of money. That notwithstanding, I do maybe think it's time to move on. Now, if they announce tomorrow that Johnny Depp was going to come back, I'd be okay with it, just because I like him as Jack Sparrow so much. But at the same time, I also feel like it might actually be a good move to move on from him and to go on to something else. He's not the big star anymore. He doesn't have that kind of box office draw that people think that he does. And, on top of that, with all the production problems that Disney has had with him as an actor on set, maybe it is time to move on. So right now, I'm kind of in between. I don't believe the story. The story's not true. But if he were ever to come back, I'd be okay with it. And if he doesn't, I'd be okay with that too. So that's just kind of where I am right now. Question is, guys, where are you on all that? Would you like to see Johnny Depp come back to play Captain Jack one more time? Do you think maybe it's run its course? Do you think you're dying for another one? How do you feel? Jump into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to the fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Box Office Beast, who writes, you mentioned a few episodes ago that movies having larger and larger budgets means that we pay more and more for our ticket. That's true. How do you feel about paying different amounts for different films? We already do this for wine, food, music, and video games. Why should a movie ticket be any different? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Box Office Beast. And you know what? You raise a really good question. Now, what Box Office Beast is referring to when I talked about the cost of making movies versus the cost of movie tickets, I've said for a long time that the reason we as film fans should care how much money the studios pay to make movies. Because a lot of time people say to me, John, it's not your money. Why do you care how much they spend to make a movie? Here's why. Here's why I care, and here's why you should care. Because who pays for that? Ultimately, you and I pay for it. One of the reasons, is not the only one, but one of the reasons movie tickets prices continue to go up and up and up is because the studios continue to spend more and more and more on making them. Well, they got to make up for that money somehow. So do they just pay for it out of the goodness of their heart themselves? No, they pass that expense on to you and me by making sure that ticket prices raise, and that's a big problem in the industry. So that's why I think you and I should care. So Box Office Beast brings up a really interesting question. If, after all, we pay more for a good bottle of wine and less for a less quality bottle of wine, not that I would know, I don't drink, but if we pay more money for great seats at a concert and less money for bad seats at a concert, if we pay more money for the better computer and less money for the weaker computer, if we do that in all things, if I pay more money to go to a Lakers game than I do to go to a local high school basketball game, why not, as some people have proposed over the years, why don't we just go to a system where at the movie theaters, if there's a little, like say the average movie price is $10, okay. If there's some little indie film, pay $5. Charge $5 for a little indie film. And, your average big film, pay $10. Pay regular price for the big ones, and then let's pay less for the movies that don't get as much attention, that don't get as much love, that don't get as much buzz. Pay less for those. So that's been an idea that's been floated around for a number of years. But here's the problem with that notion, and this is what would happen, okay? If all of a sudden the movie industry introduced a system where, okay, you pay $10 for a movie ticket. We are going to introduce a new tiered ticketing system where on a movie by movie basis, we will set the price of a ticket. So if some little independent film like Tomorrow and Forever comes out, well, that's not a big film. That's not going to get a huge marketing campaign. We know there's not a ton of people interested in that film. It's not going to pack out the theaters. So we will set the price at $4 for that. Wouldn't that be great? Some people would say. Wouldn't that be great? But here's the problem. And I guarantee you this is exactly what would happen if the movie industry started going to a tiered movie ticket pricing system, where they set the individual prices on a per movie basis. In an ideal world, if they were to do something like that, what that would mean is that you and I get to pay less for some smaller films. And maybe we'd go out and see some more smaller films, and it would be a boost to smaller films and all that kind of stuff. In an ideal world, that's what a tiered ticketing price system would do. But ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you know, and I submit unto you, that we do not live in an ideal world, and I'm going to tell you exactly what would happen. This is what would happen. Operating on an average, I think the average movie ticket price is $10. I think that's on a nationwide average, the average movie ticket cost is $10. I pay like $20 at my local Los Angeles theater here, but I believe the national average is like $10. So let's go with that for a second. What would actually happen is you wouldn't end up paying less for the smaller film. What the studios and the theaters and all that kind of stuff would ultimately do is that they would use this tiered ticketing system price as a pretext to just increasing prices for bigger movies, and you wouldn't save a dime on the smaller ones. I guarantee you that's what would happen. The pretext of, the smaller films will be less expensive, and, the bigger popular ones, the next Avengers film, the next Batman film, the next Star Wars film, the next Mission Impossible film, whatever. Yeah, and those will cost more. But what would happen is maybe the price of Forever and Tomorrow would drop to $9 from $10. Maybe they would drop it from $10 down to $9, I should say. Maybe. but they're going to more than make up for that when the next Avengers movie comes out. In your theater that you normally pay $10 a ticket, they're going to charge you $16. They're going to charge you $16. When the next Mission Impossible film comes out, maybe there's a small indie film playing that you'll pay $9.50 for, so you're saving 50 cents from your $10. But when the next Mission Impossible film comes out, they're going to charge you $13.75 for the ticket. So in every way that you think, oh, in an ideal world, we'll pay less. No, you won't. You won't and I won't. They would use that multi-tiered system as a complete pretext to get more money from you and me. And at the end of the year, when we add up all the movies that we saw and how much would we have spent if every ticket was still just $10 versus how much money did we actually end up having to spend because of this tiered system, I guarantee you it's going to be a significant amount more. So I get it. To people like you and me, the idea that we could lower the prices of some movies that we may not be as keen on seeing, but that would be a good way to support them by dropping prices on those and whatever. But that's not what would happen. We would get modest, if any, savings on the small films while getting significant price increases on the big films. Now, getting back to your question, Box Office Beast, of, we do this for almost everything else. It's true. I'm going to spend $5 on a concert ticket to see Bob and the Ruffians, but I'll spend $500 to go see a U2 concert. So you're right. It does exist on every other level. And that's a good argument. I'm just telling you, though, if they ever did implement something like that, if they ever did, and they probably will at some point, at the end of the day, it's going to end up not saving you and me money. At the end of the day, it's going to end up costing you and me money. As a matter of fact, there are some theater chains that tried experimenting with different prices for different seats, right? Remember this? There are some theater chains, there probably still are some theaters that do this, but the idea was, hey, when you go to a concert, you pay less money for a terrible seat and more money for a great seat. And there was some experiments being done. And again, there might be some theaters that still actually do this. So there's some experiments done that, okay, what if in a movie theater we do the same thing? Like, hey, if you get stuck in the back corner, instead of paying $10, you pay $8. Or if you get stuck in the front row in a neck breaker seat, nobody wants the neck breaker seat. Okay, that's $7 instead of $10. You'll pay less for the terrible seats, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately what happened was, when every ticket in that theater was on an average of $10, that meant the average ticket price was $10. Obviously, right? Every single seat was $10. The average ticket price was $10. When they did these studies, though, about theaters that implemented these differences, if it was being done fairly, the average ticket price should still end up being $10. Okay, the better seat was $12 and the worst seat was $8. The average ticket still should end up being $10, right? But what happened was, when they tried doing these things and, charging more for the better seats and less for the worst seats, there were studies done and the actual average ticket price went from $10 to like $11.75. Now, $1.75 doesn't sound like a lot, but basically, it just goes to show, once they start putting different tiers of pricing levels in, prices start to go up overall. And I think that's exactly what we would see happen if they went to tiered pricing with movie theaters. So I don't know, guys. What do you think? Maybe you're convinced. Maybe you actually believe, John, you're just being alarmist. You're worrying about a slippery slope argument. It would actually work out just fine, and this could be good for us as film fans. Maybe you feel that way. Maybe you've got a good reason to feel that way and you've got a good argument. Jump down into the comment section below and let me know what you guys think about all that. Okay, guys, with all the main topics down and out of the way, we're now going to move on to live questions. But before we get to the live questions, I'm going to do as we do every day. I'm going to take just a short couple of minute break here. Give me a minute to stretch the legs, rest the vocal cords, refill my drink, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom, guys. So if you will hang tight, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with your live questions. See you in just a minute. everybody, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I ran and got a drink. And listen, guys, hey, speaking about fortuitous timing, we were talking earlier in the show here about the fact that, there's been a movement asking No Time to Die to move. I think there's a good argument to be made for it with the case of the box office, stuff like that. Bad argument because, people might get sick at the premiere. 85 people out of 66 million have it in the UK. It's not an issue. But the whole idea about, hey, 38% of the box office is represented in countries that are going to have limited theater accessibility. Maybe you should move it back. Well, look at this. Timing is everything. And apparently now, this just came out a few minutes ago. On Deadline is repeating that No Time to Die, the release date has been moved back to the fall in hopes that the global movie theater stuff will be back at full strength. Now, I'm reading this along with you guys for the first time. This is exclusively from Deadline reading. With the coronavirus socking to the Asian box office, Deadline has learned that MGM, Eon, and Universal are postponing the next James Bond movie, No Time to Die, from its UK and international release date of April 2nd and its US weekend, Easter weekend global day and date of April 10th, and moving them to the 25th. And moving the 25th 007 movie to November 25th, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So that is now, time is everywhere. We were just talking about this earlier in the show. And I'll tell you what, from a business point of view, this is a smart move. From a business point of view, this is a smart move. Again, you're talking about, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, there are countries that represented, their country's box office represented 38%, if the study is correct, of Spectre's overall takings. Therefore, it just seems to make sense. Why don't we push this back to after this is all passed, once everybody's theaters are open again, and we can do better business. Now, April to November, that's a push. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months. I know Robert Meyer Burnett is going to be unhappy. I think he's going to be unhappy. I wouldn't doubt it if he already had his tickets. I wouldn't doubt it one bit if Robert didn't already have his tickets. Not in the least. I don't know. But he's probably going to be a little bummed out about having to wait 7 more months. But again, the bottom line is, this isn't about hysteria. This isn't about blah, blah, blah. It's business. It's numbers. We stand to make almost 40% less on this movie because of what's going on. Why don't we wait to another date that hopefully it's done by then? It's just a good business decision. So I think this makes perfect sense. Again, as a film fan, I'm a little bummed out because I've been getting very excited. I'm not the biggest James Bond fan in the world. I like a good James Bond movie, but I've been really excited for this film. So yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer. But at the end of the day, I think making good business decisions is what it's all about, and this is probably a good business decision. Question is, guys, what do you think about James Bond being pushed off until November? Do you think it's the right move? Do you think it's the wrong move? How do you feel about it? Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with that now down, let's actually move on to your live questions today. And we're going to get things started off here, if I can find them. There we go. We're going to start the live questions off here today with Call Me Ishmael, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob," who's unfortunately not here. "I went to Slater's 50-50 on Friday. I have never been to a Slater's 50-50. I have never been. And had the PB and Jealousy burger. I've never even heard of it. Let me just say, wow, that was one tasty burger. John, I know you don't like jelly, but if you try it, leave the jelly on. You won't regret it. I have spoken." Interesting. I like a good burger, but yeah, I don't like jelly. So I don't eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I'm not a big fan of jelly, so that's fine. I know if I had the burger, I'd probably take it off because that would be something that would make me not like the burger. So but thank you for the input. By the way, have any of you guys been to Slater's? Is it as good as people say? I've never tried one. All right. James Durden writes, "Isn't reading into the novel excerpt that the kiss between Rey and Kylo wasn't just a kiss of gratitude, kind of also twisting the words to make it fit in?" Oh, no, not at all. "I'm referring to what you said about including cloning under Science with Palpatine." No, they're totally different situations. Look, because cloning is the issue. If you've got the visual dictionary and you mention a whole bunch of stuff, but you don't mention clone, that's the centerpiece. That's the main attraction. That's the main thing. The stuff about the gratitude comment is a totally different scenario because gratitude, the novel didn't say this was a kiss of gratitude, period, and then they moved on. Gratitude was one of the elements that was listed. They said it was a kiss of gratitude. It was a kiss of a celebration that they had found each other at last. It was a kiss of it was one of several things listed. And that's why I said, hey, and especially when you watch the movie, that was not exclusively a kiss of platonic gratitude. That wasn't a kiss of platonic gratitude, not at all. But in the novelization, it just lists gratitude of one of the things. It listed a bunch of things it was. It was a kiss of this, it was a kiss of that, it was a kiss of this, and it was a kiss of a celebration of finally finding each other. To me, that all kind of leans more to what we saw in the movie. So yeah, if it was just said, if the book and the novelization said, Ray leaned in and gave him a very sisterly platonic kiss of gratitude. Well, if it said that, then there you go. But that's not what it said. It just listed gratitude of one of the emotions that was going in to them kissing each other and making out. And when you watch the movie, they were making out. It wasn't a sisterly platonic kiss, nor does it say that it was in the book. So I believe it's a completely different situation. At least I interpret it as a complete situation. By the way, and I'm not saying it's guaranteed that I'm right. I could be wrong about that. I'm just saying that's how I saw it. That's all I'm saying. Just saying that's how I saw it. And I'm just going by the words that were written. All right. Aaron writes, hey, John and Rob, the first movie I watched was The Karate Kid. Wow. We did it all for the glory of love. Anyway, that was a later film in the same series. I have been a martial artist my entire life because of it. Thoughts on this film? Are you inspired to this day by certain movies? Oh, I think Karate Kid was probably the film that got me first going to karate classes, actually. I went to Huntington Park Community Centers. They had karate classes there 5 nights a week. And that's where I started. It was because of Karate Kid. I mean, I think a lot of us did that because, right? I think probably 1 out of every 2 men who were old enough, at least old enough to know what they were watching when they first saw Karate Kid, probably then went at some point and took a karate class or 2. I think we all did. Another movie that really inspired me like that. I mean, it's not a direct apples to apples comparison, but I think, my first movie, Star Wars, because it got me to fall in love with movies, right? The first movie I ever saw, the earliest childhood memory I have, Star Wars, that made me fall in love with the movies. And I'm actually here today doing what I do as a profession because of that movie. So I think that's probably a pretty good one of that. So I feel you, Aaron. I was right there with you, buddy. I was right there with you. Andrew White writes, hey, John, writing in from Nashville. God, I hope you guys are doing all right. And just wanted to say thank you for the daily content. It's nice to have a constant in my daily routine to distract from the destruction just a mile down the road. Yeah, and of course, for those of you who don't know, Nashville hit massive tornadoes. My last visit to Nashville, I've got a buddy of mine named Jeff who lives in Nashville. And usually when I get to see him, he's coming out to LA because he's in the music industry. If you ever go to a concert, see these giant light and laser shows, my buddy Jeff owns probably the company that designs and runs those big light and laser shows. So he goes on tour with big music acts across the country. So usually when I get to see Jeff, it's when he's in LA for a trip. So then we get together and have dinner. But the last time I was in Nashville, I went down to see him at his place. We went to go see Project X. Remember that movie? I think it was called Project X. That was the R-rated comedy. Hold on a second. Let me just make sure that's the name of it. Yes, that was it. Project X. This was the movie here. This was it. So Project X, me, my wife Ann, and my buddy Jeff, we went to a Regal Theater in Nashville to go and watch this movie Project X. When we came out of the theater, I noticed the sky was green. I had only seen a green sky once before, and it was before one of the most brutal storms I'd ever seen. And as we're walking towards the front doors of the theater to step outside into the parking lot, I see that the skies are green, and just as I grab the door handle to push the door open, you hear air sirens going off. And I'm like, what the hell? And my buddy Jeff goes, tornadoes. So we went to, we got in the car, drove as fast as we could back to my buddy Jeff's place. And he's got a storm shelter down in his basement. And he had neighbors come over too. Like neighbors came over and I got pictures of them somewhere. And we were all just hanging out in Jeff's basement waiting for the tornado. And there was a bunch of tornadoes that hit. And that was the last time I was in Nashville. So listen, all thoughts, well wishes to you, your family, your friends, people you know. I hope everybody's okay. And just all good thoughts and well wishes to you guys as you deal with the destruction that hit out there, guys. All right. Next up, Dumbledore Calrissian writes, hey, John, my 31st birthday is this Friday. Happy birthday, dude. And I'm going with some friends to see Onward. Good choice. It's a real fun movie. You're going to have a good time. I'm super pumped, although I'm more excited for the next Pixar movie, Soul. Yeah, Soul, Soul absolutely looks like the deepest film Pixar's probably ever done. It's probably definitely the deepest film they've ever done. At least that's what it looks like on its surface. And Onward looks like a more traditional Pixar film. Soul looks like an extension of what's the movie with the emotions in her head? I can't remember the name of the movie now. Guys in the chat, what was the name of the movie again? The Pixar film where all the emotions... Inside Out. That was the name of it. Inside Out. Soul looks like it takes the kind of philosophical approach of Inside Out and like go to the nth degree of and push it even further. And Inside Out, by the way, if you haven't seen that movie is absolutely fantastic. Thank you to everybody in the chat board who's thrown in the name Inside Out. Prom, An, Omar, Yaga, DJ, all you guys, thanks for sending that in. Excellent film. And again, I probably think maybe the deepest. It's actually, when you look at the thematic elements of the movie, maybe the deepest Pixar film. And it looks like Soul's going to go even to the next level. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. All right, we move on now. Dumbledore Calrissian also writes, I'm a bit of a novice in this department, so could you explain what the difference is between a standard Blu-ray and the same movie in 4K Ultra HD? Well, standard Blu-ray, it's all about... standard Blu-ray is 1920 by 1080. That's the size of the image. So and that's in pixels. So if you look at the width, it's 1,920 pixels wide, 1,080 pixels long. So that is the resolution of the image, right? So when you're looking at your screen, if you got a Blu-ray playing, you got an HD monitor, you're seeing 1,920 pixels by 1,080 pixels. The more pixels, the clearer, the better the image. I think DVD was 480, right? I think it was like 480 something. I think it was 720 by 480. I could be wrong about that. I might not be remembering that right. But at any rate, no, 720. Yeah. Anyway, yep. 1080 by 7. Anyway, blah. 4K is 4 times that resolution, roughly speaking. So you're actually looking at like almost 4,000, 3,900. Like the movie I'm editing right now is like the aspect ratio is like 3,820, blah, blah, blah. So it's just much a denser resolution. So in theory, what you're talking about is you've got, I think, almost quadruple the amount of pixels that are squeezed into that same image you're looking at. So if you're looking at a 4K monitor, you can look at a HD Blu-ray that's 1920 by 1080. But then you slap on a 4K piece of content on it, you are looking at almost quadruple the amount of pixels. So it should be even crisper and sharper and have more color richness and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm there's way more to it than what I'm saying. But the basics is 4K. You're talking about a much greater number of pixels, which in theory... Now, then there's some argument that unless you're sitting a certain distance from the TV, your eye can't even perceive the pixel difference between regular 1080 HD and 4K. And there's an argument, like, so the closer you sit to your TV, the more your eye can perceive the difference. The further back you sit from the TV, the less your eye can perceive the difference. There's a whole bunch of things in that. But again, I'm just giving a simple little kind of Cole's notes. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can go and read on that, but that's the basic thing of that. All right. Undead Sick 83 writes, Hey, John, I want to comment on what you said about fans lying to themselves. I don't think that's true. Oh, it's absolutely true. Listen, I'll tell you something. I've been doing this first as a hobby and then professionally for like 15 years, where every day I'm interacting with hundreds of thousands, millions of film fans every month who write in and all that kind of stuff. Believe me, we do that. Believe me, we do that. We do lie to ourselves. I do it, you do it, we all do it. Anyway, let me keep reading here. I want to comment on what you said about fans lying to themselves. I don't think that's true. We just know what we want. Also, fans saying they want filmmakers to take risks and then want them to do what always will work, in my mind, is also untrue. Oh, it is absolutely, believe me, my experience has told me that is absolutely true. We just have better knowledge as gamers, comic book readers, etc., of what something should look like because we are so invested in those things. I'll get to that in a minute. For example, I have been a Spider-Man fan since I was 10, turning 38 this year. And guess what? I hated Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home because it's nothing like the comics. This is what I meant when I say that movie makers don't give enough consideration to fans of any source material, comic books, games, novels, etc. Thoughts. Okay, let me unpack this. So, first of all, let's start with the last thing you said and we'll work our way backwards. You don't have a better idea about what something should be. You have a better idea, as comic book readers, you and I have a better idea about what is in the comic books, right? You and I have a better idea about what is in the comic books. What you and I do not have is a better idea about how it should be portrayed on the big screen. Those are two different things. Those are two different things. Just because something works on a printed page does not necessarily mean it will work as well on the big screen, right? There needs to be what's called adaptation. That's why when you look at a couple of the greatest comic book movies of all time, they're really nothing like they were in the comic books. X-Men Days of Future Past, I believe, is a top 10 best comic book movie of all time. And it's very, very little like the comic book because adaptation is needed to make a better movie. Remember, the first job of a filmmaker is not to be as true as possible to the source material. That's not their first job. Their first job is to make the best movie possible. And sometimes, oftentimes, that means you need to adapt what you've got and translate it. Captain America Civil War is nothing like the Captain America Civil War comic book. There are some thematic similarities, but if you want to go on a shot-by-shot basis, that's a totally different movie. And guess what? It's pretty much celebrated as one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. You know? The Dark Knight, a movie that some people consider to be the best comic book movie of all time, is nothing like the comics. It's certainly nothing like The Dark Knight Returns, but they adapted, they took thematic similarities, and Christopher Nolan made the best movie possible, not the most true to the source. And Homecoming and Far From Home, okay, I respect that you didn't like it. That's fine. But guess what? A hell of a lot of people do. Spider-Man Far From Home made over $1 billion at the box office. $1 billion at the box office. Spider-Man Homecoming made around the $800 million mark, $800 million, and people liked it so much, they came back, and even more people came back to watch the second one, which made over $1 billion. Because people loved it. People liked it. Not everybody. Like everybody loves the original Blade Runner, and I don't. So, but that doesn't matter that I didn't. Most people love it, and that's great. You didn't like these Spider-Man movies, and that's fine. But guess what? The vast, vast, vast majority of people did. And listen, I have these arguments with my buddies all the time about how, the filmmakers don't give enough consideration to the fans of the source material. Guess what? Here's the problem. The fans of the source material represent about 2% of the movie-going audience. You can't just cater to the fans of the original source material and neglect the 98% of the rest of the movie-going public. You've got to take it, keep it true to the spirit of it if you can, but you got to make the best movie possible. And that's why we get The Dark Knight. That's why we get Civil War. That's why we get Days of Future Past. That's why we get some of these all-time greatest comic book movies of all time. Do you think Logan was anything like Old Man Logan, the comic? No. But it clearly took some influence, whatever, and then they made their own film. It was nothing like it is in the comics, but Logan is a top 3 greatest comic book movie ever made, in my opinion, at any rate. So we as film fans, we got to understand, particularly if we are also fan of games or fans of comic books or fans of whatever, fans of originating source material, that the first job of the filmmakers is to make the best movie possible. Make the best movie possible. And where you can do that, that makes it similar to the source material, great. And where you have to diverge from that to do something different to make it work better on the big screen, great. Now, it doesn't always work, right? Sometimes they deviate and it ends up being a disaster, right? So clearly it doesn't always work. It's not like it's a magic formula that works, but we also know it can work. And we've seen it work. And some of the best comic book movies ever made are adaptations of that. So, yeah, I got to disagree. I really do. I have to disagree with you. I think we want our filmmakers to make the best movies possible while drawing inspiration and influence from the originating source material. Take some thematic elements, move them over, but at the end of the day, we just want great movies. And I would say this on Dead Sick, as my fellow film loving brother, I would say this to you, and I say this in love, I really do, because I got to tell myself this a lot. Believe me, I got to tell myself this a lot too. If you're going into a movie and saying, I will only like this movie if it is this, this, and this, I believe you're selling yourself short as a film fan. If you're going into a movie and saying, I hate this movie because it's not like the comics, then I think you're selling yourself short. I think you need to go into a movie and just say, and just judge the movie on its own merits. Forget about whether it's exactly like the comic or it's not. Just, is it a good movie? Because you're not cheating me. You're not cheating the filmmakers. You're not cheating the studio. I feel like you're cheating yourself and selling yourself short. And I feel like you're robbing yourself of some potentially really good movie-going experiences. Now, if you go in and you don't care if it's like the comic book or not, and you just didn't like it on its own merits, nothing wrong with that. I got lots of movies like that. You got lots of movies like that. But as a film-loving brother, as my fellow film fan, I want to encourage you to not sell yourself short. Don't go in with prerequisites. I will only like this movie if it does exactly what I think it should do, because I think you're robbing yourself. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on that as one film fan to a fellow film fan. That's just my thoughts on that. So anyway, let's all just keep loving this stuff together. All right. Hoser Miaz writes, Disney Plus Europe event for March 5th, 2020 got canceled. I didn't know there was an event. I wasn't familiar with that, but I'm curious now. Now I'm going to want to go and look it up. James Argento writes, I think Kennedy will leave once her contract is up in 2021 and sign a deal like Amy Pascal did with Sony to make other films for Disney. I don't know about that. I don't know. Now look, I believe, and this is not a scoop. I have no insider information on this. This is just me as a fan speculating. I believe Kathleen Kennedy will step down within the next 6 months. I believe that the new Disney CEO, Bob Chapek, is going to want to put his own person in that position and start taking Star Wars in more of a direction that's in line with his vision. I don't know that that's the case. I'm just speculating that. Pure speculation on my part. But I think it'll be in the next 6 months. But because her contract that just got extended not too long ago runs into 2021, that's also not that far away. So she very well could run out her contract. That is possible, just to shake the boat the least. It all depends on what Bob Chapek wants to do. I don't think she's interested in doing a deal like Amy Pascal did with Sony. I think she would go back to doing what she is one of the best in the world at doing, which is just being a producer that works with individual filmmakers that she likes to work with. Because when she does that, she's one of the best in the world. Steven Spielberg says she's the best in the world, and I'll take his word for it. It's just that to me, and I remain a big fan of hers on that level, she is a tremendous producer. She is not a good studio head. And I just feel like and nobody wanted her to succeed more than I did. Nobody was cheering for her to succeed more than I was. Nobody was more positive about her appointment. She was handpicked by George Lucas himself. Her resume is impeccable. Nobody was more for Kathleen Kennedy's hiring, running Disney or running Lucasfilm than I was. But it doesn't always work out, even if it looks great on paper. And I'm sorry, when you look at the facts and you look at all the things that have happened, and I like the movies, other than The Rise of Skywalker, but you look at all the behind the scenes stuff, all the things that are important for a studio head to do, and all the things that she has dropped the ball on. She is one of the greatest producers of all time, but she is not a good studio head. It's not her thing. And guess what? I wouldn't be a good studio head either. I'm good at certain things, not good at others. You're good at certain things, not good at others. Kathleen Kennedy's great at certain things, maybe not great at others. And that's okay. She's still one of the greatest producers of all time, but she has not been a good studio head. She just hasn't been a good studio head. So whether it's in 6 months, like I kind of speculate, or whether it'll be after 2021, I do believe she'll move on, but I don't think she'll do the Amy Pascal thing because I don't think that's what she'd want to do. I don't think that's what she'd want to do. I think she's going to want to do other things. I wouldn't be surprised if she goes right back to working with Spielberg again. Her and Spielberg have, and I know Spielberg would love to work with her again, so I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, John, having no Christopher Plummer as an old man actor, but he's great, isn't he? Good Canadian kid, by the way. I was completely thrown when I found out he was Captain Von Trapp. That's right, in Sound of Music. In The Sound of Music. How did I not know this? You have any actors you were surprised to see in an earlier role? Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question. Actors that I first became aware of when they were older performers, and then were like, wow, finding them in like an iconic role when they were younger. That's a good question. I think I like Paul Newman. Like when I was growing up, he was already Paul Newman, you know, when I was growing up, he was already Paul Newman doing like Color of Money and stuff like that. I think I was a little shocked. Maybe this isn't an exact comparison to your situation, but I think I was a little surprised when I went back and saw Cool Hand Luke for the first time. When I went back and saw Cool Hand Luke for the first time, that's when I started going, oh, wow, he does these other kind of movies, right? He does these other kind of movies, and maybe I should look into these. That was the first, but again, I know that's not an apples to apples comparison. That's a great question. Let me put it to you guys watching live. Do you guys have an actor that you always knew one way, and then were like, wait a minute, when they were younger, they did this? Do you have any examples of that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on that. All right. Let's move on here. Next one, Luke, I am your plumber. I love that name, writes. I just want to say that I also like the latest Star Trek films. I was at the theaters and seen Into Darkness, and when Uhura told Spock to go get him after Kirk died, the whole place erupted. I have never been so pumped up before on a Star Trek film or show. Yeah, listen, I am somebody who am a fan of the 3 JJ era Star Trek films. I like the 3 films. I even like Into Darkness. I thought Into Darkness was the weakest one of the bunch, but I even like that one other than that horrible Khan moment. Yeah, that moment was terrible. They never should have done that. They should have taken that out. No argument from me. But overall, I liked it very much. I like those films. It's a shame that they did not do better. And we talked on the show the other day that according to Simon Pegg, it looks like they may not be doing any more, which is really unfortunate. An anonymous viewer writes, I saw the original Star Wars 256 times in the theaters during its original run, and over 20 times since then on, or 200 times since then on Laserdisc, VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. Guess I like it. Yeah, I have clearly never, I think the most times I've ever gone to see a movie in theater is probably a movie I don't even like, The Phantom Menace. I went back to watch The Phantom Menace, I think 18 times in theaters. Now, you also have to understand, and I unfortunately liked it less and less every time I saw it, but I was working in a visual effects company at the time, right? And so we worked not too far from a little theater that was like $4 to see a movie during a weekday in the middle of the day. And we would always have this code word, staff meeting. When we'd say staff meeting, that meant let's split and go watch The Phantom Menace again. Because as visual effects company, we were amazed by what was in The Phantom Menace. Say what you want about The Phantom Menace. That movie, I don't know that any single movie has ever come out that has pushed the visual effects industry forward more in one swoop than like the Phantom Menace did. It was just, our jaws were always on the floor. Like, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. Maybe I grew to hate the film, but it didn't matter. Like, the visual effects were crazy. But I think that might be the most I ever saw a movie in theater. Now, I've probably also, like you, probably seen the film over 200 times since then. I mean, the original Star Wars, I mean. But, man, I cannot fathom going to a theater to see a movie like more than 40 times. I just can't even fathom it. That's insane, dude. That's insane. All right. Initial D's writes, John, I didn't expect you to go on about me teasing you about forgetting names. Oh, no, that's no problem, man. That's not an issue. It was all in fun and jokes. I know it was. I don't blame you at all. What you do every day is amazing and hard work. It was all for the gag. I don't think anyone blames you. You're my favorite YouTuber. Oh, no, I never took it too seriously. Like, no. And listen, it is fair to tease me about that, because if you watch my show, you do know that quite a bit of goes, man, it reminds me of this movie that I saw a few years ago, blah, 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 with, oh, what was his name? What's the name of that actor? And then I freeze on the name of the actor, right? It happens. It happens. So I don't mind it. I don't blame that you're teasing me for it at all. Don't worry about it. All right. Damo Davies writes, the character of Max from the original 1996 movie, played by Vanessa Redgrave, CBE, I don't know what movie we're talking about, has a connection to the most recent movie Fallout, as her character's daughter, the White Widow, is in the movie played by Vanessa Kirby. I don't know what we're talking about. Hold on a second here. Vanessa Kirby. She plays one of the daughters from like a character. Oh, you're talking about Mission Impossible. I didn't realize there was a connection to the original film. I'd never even heard of that. I don't know if that's true. Is that true? That her character in Seven was the daughter of a character from... I never even thought of that. I have to go back and look into that now. That's kind of fascinating if that's true, Damo. All right. One of Rob's hot toys writes, please accept this tip as a kiss of gratitude. Anyway, I'm glad you mentioning For All Mankind. Between that and Morning Show, Apple TV Plus has been much better than expected, in my opinion. My new favorite character in TV is Corey, Bill Crudup from Morning Show. Listen, I'll tell you what. Those are the two shows on Apple TV Plus that I have checked out, and I gotta say I agree with you. They're really good. Morning Show is really good. And For All Mankind, I just ended up binge watching it over a couple of days because Ray was here and Ray had it on, and that's what got me into it. And I gotta say, that show was way better than I thought it would be. Significantly better than I thought it would be. And I've liked those shows so much that it's made me go, like the Jason Momoa show, I think it's called C. That thing looks stupid as hell to me, so I never even bothered trying it. And there's a couple of others that I didn't even bother trying, but I liked Morning Show so much, and I liked For All Mankind so much, that I'm now wondering, I think I need to go back and start watching some more of these Apple TV Plus shows, because so far the quality has been top notch. It's been really top notch, so I think I may have to go back and start watching those. All right, Murray Reich writes, I saw Invisible Man and I thought it was great. It was great. Elizabeth Moss' performance was solid. It felt more of a psychological thriller than a monster universe or straight up horror movie. So many twists and turns. Nice ending. Overall solid 8 out of 10. Yeah, I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. And again, I don't look at that film as a monster film. It's not a monster film. It's not a monster movie in any way, shape, or form. I do consider it a horror thriller sort of thing, but I was so impressed with that movie. And it's funny because I was at Disneyland the other day with a friend of mine, Matt, and we were saying how much we watch it, and Matt's like, Invisible Man, that movie looks whack, dude. I have no intention of seeing that. And we're all like, there's like 4 of us at the table who had seen it. We're like, I really think you'll like it. You should check it out. Nah, I don't want to see that. And I get it. It doesn't look like it's a movie for everybody, but I was really impressed with how good it actually was. Murray also writes, every time I go to Regal, they play ads 7 minutes past the showtime. That's unacceptable. Then 20 minutes of trailers, then a stupid 1-minute Regal short film, and then they have a 1-minute Regal Unlimited ad. So it became a total of 30 minutes of effing wasted time. It's now become 2 movies I'm seeing. Murray, dude, you guys know this is a real pet peeve of mine of the movie-going experience today. When you tell me a movie starts at 7, start your effing movie at 7. Or start it as close to 7 as possible. I've said this before, I will say it again. When I go to a free website and they have ads on the site, that's fine. I'm getting a free website. I understand that. When I'm watching just a show on regular broadcast television, other than paying for my cable bill, I'm watching TV for free. I get it. There's going to be commercials to help pay for everything. But when I pay for Netflix, I don't want commercials. When I pay for the Hulu Extra Plus, I don't want to see commercials. When I am paying for the website, I don't want to see ads. When I pay to be in a theater for a movie that you say starts at 7, you don't get to then show me 30 minutes of ads. Pay me $25 if you want me to sit down and watch 30 minutes of ads for you. Pay me $25. But I paid a premium ticket price, because where I live, it's like $17 to go to a regular theater, $20+ to go to one of the Prime theaters. I paid a prime price to sit here for a movie that you said started at 7, and I've said this for a long time. I got a solution. You do one of two things. Get rid of them. Do like what the ArcLight Cinema in Hollywood does, which has a limit of 3 trailers per movie. I can live with that because I like trailers, but not 30 minutes of trailers. Or I will also be perfectly satisfied if they say this. Showtime starts at 7. Movie starts at 7:29. There should be a rule and a law where movie theaters should advertise what time the actual movie starts. Say showtime is at 6:30, movie begins 7:01. I think there should be a law for that. We are paying to be there. We are paying premium prices to be there. We should not have to force ourselves to sit through a half hour of advertisements for something we paid to be there for. It's an unacceptable thing, Murray, and it's got to be changed. All right, Murray also writes, I haven't seen Onward yet, but I can tell you right now, the first Pixar movie to not have a Pixar short film is Coco. Well, Coco did have a film in front of it. I remember when watching it in theaters, they showed a 20-minute short film of Olaf's Frozen Adventure before the movie started. That was a huge issue, right? A lot of people were really pissed off at that. Like a short film, you think 3, 4, 5 minutes at most. Technically speaking, a 20-minute film is a short film. Technically speaking, that is qualified as a short film. But it's just like a lot of people are like, first of all, there's a half hour of ads and then a 20-minute short and then the movie starts. So for a lot of people, they went to a 7 o'clock movie, but the movie didn't start until almost 8 o'clock. Right? Till like almost 8. And a lot of people got pissed at that. And then eventually I believe they pulled the short film out from in front of it. But yeah, by the way, Onward, the Simpsons short film that plays in front of Onward is really good. It's really, really good. Anyway, Michael Jones writes, looking forward, and it sent in $20. Thank you, Michael, for supporting the channel on that level. We appreciate that, man. Looking forward to the way back. Not only are there no reviews yet, but there are no Thursday night previews. The last movie that had no Thursday night previews was Fantasy Island. I thought there was Thursday night previews for Fantasy Island. Anyway, let me look up something here, because it is now Wednesday, almost afternoon, morning. The way back, Rotten Tomatoes. The movie opens in 2 days. Are there any are there any reviews up for it yet? Yes, reviews are now up. And it's at 85%. Reviews have just started to go up, and the reviews are at 85%, which is a huge sigh of relief to me because I've been really looking forward to this movie. I've been dying to see this movie. It's going to totally flop, but I've been totally dying to see this movie. Now, granted, there are only 13 reviews in right now, so that number could go way up, it could go way down, but that's a good relief to see. I don't understand, in a movie industry today, when it is common practice for the movies that open on Friday to really open Thursday night, I don't understand why you don't have Thursday night screenings. I don't understand the mentality there. Apparently, they've got a pretty good looking film. The reviews so far are positive. I don't know why you wouldn't have a Thursday night. The last one I remember not having a Thursday night preview was that god-awful movie with Melissa McCarthy, The Kitchen, and Elizabeth Moss. Elizabeth Moss, the girl, Tiffany Haddish. I love all three of those women. I love Melissa McCarthy. I love Elizabeth Moss. I love Tiffany Haddish. That movie was so gut-wrenchingly terrible, and I was so excited for that movie. I thought the previews looked great. I thought the concept was great. But anyway, that's the last movie I remember there not being a Thursday night screening for, and me going, what? Like, it's a weird thing, dude. It's a totally weird thing. Anyway, Ashley M. writes, just saw Call of the Wild, a fun adventure film for the whole family. Too bad it was terribly marketed and a high budget. It really does feel like it should have come out on Disney Plus. Too bad it's losing money. Lots of good actors in the film. You know what? Everybody I've heard that has seen, well, no, not everybody. I take that back. But a lot of people that I have heard from that have actually seen Call of the Wild have said it's actually pretty good. And that's good to hear. But man, how any studio executive greenlit a $125 million budget for that movie, which was clearly not going to make that much, is completely beyond me. And it is a shame, Ashley, because a lot of people like yourself are saying the movie's actually pretty good. So I might have to check it out at some point. I'm philosophically against it because I don't want a CGI dog. I want to see a real dog, but that's just me. But I'm hearing it's pretty good. Ben Rayner writes, hey, John and Rob, I'm at the point to me where 1 to 6 are canon and 7 to 9 solid movies, some great stuff, but just non-canon to me anymore, in my opinion. Also, Rob, good luck on Schmo Bates tonight. I don't know what that is. But, hey, it is all canon. Even the wretched episodes 1 through 3 are canon. They're canon. It's not a matter of opinion. It's not a matter of, to me, these are canon, and to me, these aren't. I mean, that's fine, but they are canon. You can feel a certain way, but they are canon. You can say, to me, this glass is metal. Well, that's okay. You can feel that way, but it's plastic. You can feel like in your head, to you, it's metal, and that's fine, but it is plastic. It doesn't feel like it's plastic. It's not, in my opinion, plastic. It is plastic. 7 through 9 are canon. And believe me, I feel you, because I would like to say, to me, I just ignore 1 through 3. They're not canon to me, but they are canon. They are. And then it is what it is. But I know where you're coming from, Ben. I know where you're coming from. All right, Jonathan writes, you say 2019 had the best movies like Parasite and JoJo. While I agree, can we also agree 2012 had the most memorable movies? Skyfall, Avengers, Dark Knight Rises, Hunger Games, 21 Jump Street. Which was your favorite 2012 movies? Well, I can't remember what movies came out in 2012. Probably Avengers was my favorite. If Avengers came out in 2012, which I believe it did, that's probably my favorite one, because to me, Avengers is the best comic book movie ever made. But when I talk about 2019, I'm not saying the best movies came out in 2019. I'm saying 2019 was so utterly packed with incredible movies that it boggles the mind. You know, films like The Farewell, and many others like it, Just Mercy. Like, there are so many mind-bogglingly great films that couldn't get a Best Picture nomination because there were just too many amazingly great films. So I'm not saying the best films ever made came from 2019. I'm just saying 2019 was, as Robert Meyer Burnett would put it, an embarrassment of riches. An absolute embarrassment of riches. There's so many great films that came out in 2019. It's absolutely staggering to me. Anyway, Abdullah Al-Gadam writes, hey, John, I don't know if somebody already thought of it, but I have a theory about Rian Johnson's iPhone comment. I think he's just saying that to mislead us, so when Knives Out sequel comes out, we'll dismiss anyone who has an iPhone as a killer. Thoughts? No, that wouldn't make any sense, because that's an easily refutable thing. Like, because Rian Johnson made a public statement about that. If it's flatly untrue, Apple could just put out a statement and say, that's not true. But they didn't, right? So no, I don't think it's... That's some very creative thinking, Abdullah. It's some very creative thinking. But I don't think that's it at all. Like, I can come out and make a statement to say, oh, Ford Motor Company has decided they're going to build a spaceship and send it to Mars. Well, I can say that, but all Ford Motor Company has to do is say, no, we're not. And there it goes. So no, I don't think it's some elaborate plot by Rian Johnson, because it's too easily refutable by the company itself. Just say, that's not true. So yeah, so I don't think that's some creative thinking. That's some creative thinking, but I don't think that's the case. All right, Peter Weber writes, buy one, rent one, never see one. Gremlins, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and Poltergeist. Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. Buy one, rent one, never see one. Gremlins, E.T., and Poltergeist. All right. Oh, damn. I buy one, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. It's one of the greatest. God, Poltergeist or Gremlins, I got to get rid of one? All right, it pains me to say it. I'll rent Poltergeist and I'll get rid of Gremlins. I hate saying that because I love Gremlins, but that's a tough choice, so that's how I'll do it. So I'll buy E.T., I'll rent Poltergeist, I'll never see Gremlins. Oh, that sucks. All right, Ike Moore writes, binging The Office for the first time. I'm on season 7. Should I keep going after Michael leaves? Yes. It is rough at first after Michael leaves because they did a terrible, terrible, worst decision they ever made, and they made the Andy Bernard character, played by Ed Helms, as the new centerpiece of the show, and that was just because The Hangover was popular. Like, ooh, he's really popular right now. Let's make him the head of the show. It was a terrible decision. It gets off to a rough start after Michael leaves, but they start to correct their mistake, and the show gets on much better footing after that. So yes, I would suggest pushing through because it gets rough after Michael leaves, but then it gets better. So I would keep going. All right, Yummy Llamas writes, Mary F. Kill, Richard Madden, Jack Black, Elijah Wood. Well, I mean, I don't know. I like all three of these guys. You definitely keep, let's transition that to keep, rent, or get rid of. I keep Richard Madden. Oh, but I like Elijah Wood and Jack Black. I'll go rent Jack Black and get rid of Elijah Wood, but that hurts to say because I like all those guys. Jorge Sosa writes, the director of Bring It On directed Ant-Man. Yeah, we were talking about that the other day, about how somebody said, man, I don't know if I want the director of Fantasy Island directing X-Force. And I'm like, yeah, but who would have thought the directors of You, Me, and Dupree to direct Captain America Winter Soldier? Of course, that was the biggest movie, the awful You, Me, and Dupree. That's the biggest movie that the Russo brothers had ever done without Kevin Feige. And I think that movie's terrible. I know some people that like it, and that's cool if you do. I thought the movie was terrible. But yeah, they went on to direct Captain America the Winter Soldier and Captain America Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame, right? So yeah, it is what it is. And who would have thought the guy who directed Bring It On, Peyton Reed, would do such a great job directing Ant-Man? And I think he did do a great job directing that. Jake C. writes, why don't biopics qualify under Best Adapted? Because they're not adapted. The rules of adapted are adapted from a previous work, right? So let's say this. Let's say, I don't know. Let's say Bob Iger, okay? If somebody does a biopic on Bob Iger, it's considered an original screenplay. However, if somebody does a biopic movie on Bob Iger, but they base their movie on the biography book that got released, then it's an adapted screenplay. You see what I mean? So it has to be adapted from a previous work. Adapted from a previous work. So that's the key there. Amir writes, hey, John, a couple of days ago, I heard you say you and Ann might be looking for another TV show to watch. We are. Can I suggest The Americans? It never got the love it deserves, in my opinion, of course. Fantastic characters and story. One of my all-time favorite shows. I'll tell you what, I have wanted to start watching The Americans for a long time because it won tons of awards, and everybody that I know, and I don't know a ton of people that have seen it, but everybody that I know that has seen it swears by that show. Swears by that show. And I have wanted for a long time to get started on that. That's maybe when I should get back on. I should go back and start because I've never heard anything but great things about it. So thanks for putting that back on my radar, Amir. All right. Tachyon of the Source writes, C2E2, at C2E2, Ian McDiarmid, who is, of course, the actor who plays Palpatine, revealed that a cut line from The Rise of Skywalker had Palpatine acknowledge that he was a clone, specifically, more than a clone, less than a man. I read that before, and to me, it doesn't make things better. It only makes things worse. If you actually had a line in the movie that actually discusses this key important fact that this guy we're seeing is actually a clone, why the flying F would you take it out of the movie? The only reason you take it out of the movie is to confuse the matter. It's just ridiculous. And if that is cut out of the movie, then why don't you have it explained in the visual dictionary? You know, the book that's made to explain these things, why not put it in there? So to me, it just made the whole situation even that much more confounding. It's just so ridiculous. I'm not going to get too worked up on it again, Tachyon. I'm not going to get too worked up on it again, but it just makes the situation even worse in my opinion. Anyway, Sheik writes, since they are not focusing on any more Justice League movies, do you think it's still possible for Darkseid to appear sometime? Well, listen, they're not focusing on Justice League movies right now. They're focusing on individual standalone characters in their movies right now. But that doesn't mean they're never going to get around to doing a Justice League again. Yeah, I think they're going to keep focused on this one aspect right now. I think they're going to focus on this one aspect for now, on individual films. But in the next few years, maybe not the next 2 or 3 years, but at some point, they're going to start to doing the shared cinematic universe thing again. And I believe, I don't know this, but I believe they will hold off on Darkseid until they get around to doing that. Now, Ava DuVernay is allegedly working on a New Gods movie, and if you do a New Gods movie, you very well could have Darkseid in there, but I still have my doubts that that movie's ever going to happen. So I think eventually they'll get around to doing that, and when they do, they will hold off Darkseid until then. So that's my thoughts. Again, no insider information. That's just me as a fan speculating. Sam O'Neill writes, finally got to watch Knives Out, and geez, it's brilliant. It is brilliant, right? That movie is so good. Loved every second of it. Not a big fan of movies set in mostly the same place, but this worked. I am a big fan of movies that mostly take place in one location. Going all the way back to like Sylvester Stallone movies Oscar, where the whole movie 99% of the movie takes place just in one house. I don't know why. I get a big kick out of those. And this, no exception. Although a lot of the movie does happen outside of the house in Knives Out, a lot of the movie does take place there. Fantastic movie. So glad it got some Oscar love. All right, Superman Steve writes, John, Rob, the Professor and the Madman movie is absolutely incredible. Full review on my channel. Listen, I love the trailer, but I've never seen or had the opportunity to watch it yet. I thought the trailer looked great. It's certainly got a stellar cast. I am curious to see it. I just never got around to seeing it yet. So I didn't even know it was available to be seen yet. I got to look into that. All right, Kirian writes, my top 10 comic book movies. Number 10, The Dark Knight Rises. That's not one of the stronger comic book movies, but this is your list. Number 9, X-Men Days of Future Past. Number 8, Joker. Number 7, Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 6, Captain America Civil War. Number 5, The Avengers. Number 4, Avengers Endgame. Number 3, Avengers Infinity War. Number 2, The Dark Knight. Number 1, Captain America The Winter Soldier. Isn't it? Listen, it's so weird to think about because people only think about what's going on right now, what's happening right in front of us. And for the most part, people don't think back. It wasn't that long ago that comic book movies were a joke to people. Now, look at today. Look at this list. And there's a lot of great comic book movies you don't have on. For instance, you don't have Logan on there, huh? But this is your list. Look at that list. Look at how many great comic book movies there are, and there are a ton more that aren't even on your list, and that's just a really good testament about where we are today with the genre. All right, Swim writes, my top 5 romantic films. Number 5, Dirty Dancing. Number 4, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. You know, I had this discussion with somebody the other day. I had never really considered that a romantic film. Obviously, they're elements, but I never thought of it in those terms, but more and more people really are, so that's interesting. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Number 3, Her. Number 2, 500 Days of Summer. Number 1, Rocky. It might have been used from that brought up that Rocky really is. It is one of the truly great romance movies of all time. And you think of Rocky, you don't think of it in those terms. When you go back to that original Rocky film, it is truly one of the most wonderful romance films ever between Rocky and Adrian. I mean, it just is. So anyway, good list, man. Ryan Lohner writes, my new idea for introducing the X-Men into the MCU. A movie has a minor civilian character show up a few times, just enough so people notice them. Then, in The Stinger, they contact Magneto about the information they've gathered and turn into Mystique. I mean, you can, but it doesn't address the fundamental problem, right? The fundamental problem of how to bring the X-Men into the MCU is not how do you literally just bring the characters in. The fundamental problem of bringing the X-Men into the MCU is fundamentally based on the fact that how do you explain that mutants have never been mentioned? Especially when you understand the X-Men mythology, that the whole thing about X-Men is predicated on mutants have been around for a long time, and there have been long-held prejudices against mutants, going back to the age of Charles and Eric being younger, and they've come through all this, and there's this this turmoil that exists because of that's been on for decades and generations of people, and blah blah blah. That's kind of a core fundamental aspect of the whole mythology of the X-Men world. How do you now bring mutants into it where none of that is there? None of that history is there. None of that core important aspects that for generations now, mutants have been kind of this outside thing. They've been prejudiced against. They've been persecuted. They've been, how do you bring, and then evolving out of that are two separate trains of thought. The thoughts of Eric, Magneto, of then mutants got to fend for themselves, and it's them against us, and we will make them coexist with us. We will force them to coexist, and if that doesn't work, then we will subjugate them. The other philosophy emerging, that of a Professor Charles Xavier. It is our responsibility to show the rest of humanity that we can live together, and it is our job as Homo Superior to protect those people and all that kind of stuff. So it's very much, Stan Lee talks about it being very much an allegory of the Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Two variant philosophies about how to address this long-standing prejudice, right? You lose all of that by just saying, all of a sudden now there are mutants. All of that richness is gone. So that to me is the fundamental key and problem. It's not about how do we literally introduce the X-Men. It's how do you bring them into this world when they haven't been there already? And that's a tough thing. And I don't have the answer. So I'm very anxious to see how Kevin Feige and his brain trust come up with how they're going to adapt that. Anyway. All right. Matthew Phillips writes, hold on a second. Where am I at here? Matthew Phillips writes, my dream Wolverine / MCU intro. Avengers see two figures rapidly fly into a building, smoke clears, and a yellow figure emerges. The man removes his cowl, revealing Hugh Jackman. He looks at the Avengers and says, were you expecting someone else, bub? Well, yeah, we know that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. We are indeed not going to get Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine. As much as I would love it, as much as a lot of you would love it, as much as the world would love it, Hugh Jackman has been emphatic in the fact that he's not going to be Wolverine anymore. That's just not going to be him anymore. It's not his thing. He was so excited about not having to work out 4 hours a day anymore and do everything that he needs to do. He was so excited for all that. I just don't see there being any possibility that we get to see him back. So it would be kind of cool. But again, don't hold your breath. It's not going to happen. We're not going to see him back. All right. I mean, maybe as a cameo in maybe the first Marvel Deadpool movie. Maybe there's a cameo there for that. But other than that, no, probably not. Probably not going to see it. All right, next up. Guess the Quote writes, I'm telling you, that baby could be, I know what this is. That baby could be the star of a show called Babies I Don't Care About. Okay, the only reason I know this one off the top of my head is because I think it was just a month or two ago that I was watching this again. And that is Will Ferrell when he was on The Office. Talking about Jim and Pam's baby, and then it cuts to Will Ferrell. I'm telling you, that baby could be the star of a show called Babies I Don't Care About. That's the only reason I remember this, because I saw it a little while ago. All right, RTJ Technovine writes, I keep watching Contagion lately. You know what? Here's the thing. I don't get why everybody is talking about Contagion and not talking about Outbreak. The one with Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo. I don't like I get it. Contagion's a really good movie. I like Contagion. It's great. But to me, the better virus outbreak movie is Outbreak. I think Donald Sutherland is in that too. MJ is saying in the chat is because it's on Netflix. I mean, that might be it, because if Contagion's on Netflix and anybody can just go and watch it right now, there's that. But I actually prefer Outbreak. I think Outbreak's the better one, but that's just me. Star Wars Rocks writes, hey, John, when is the new My Hero Academia movie coming out on digital? Oh, I have no idea. No idea. I mean, it was only in theaters now, so it's probably going to be 2 or 3 months, probably 3 months before you see it on digital. That's my guess at any rate. So yes. Okay. Next one up. Adam Tander writes, while filming P5, Pirates 5, Johnny had so much to deal with, his mom passing, divorce from Amber. The Jack Sparrow character really suffered for it. I'd love to see him in a 6th film now that he's in a better mental state. But I don't know. Again, you go back, this goes way beyond just his marriage. Everybody forgets about that. It goes way beyond his marriage. Disney had a history of problems with Johnny Depp shooting the film. Again, in his own admission, he drinks $30,000 worth of wine a month. Again, you go back to 2018 and that really, it's a troubling article in Rolling Stone about him, his lifestyle, how he handles himself. It's a hard thing. And when you take all stuff into consideration, now look, it's still very difficult for me to imagine a Pirates of the Caribbean without Johnny Depp. And if they were to do another movie with Johnny Depp in a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, I'll be there to see it for sure. But if you're Disney, I also get the business idea of we've run with that as long as we can. It's time to take Pirates in a new direction. We were getting diminishing returns over here. We've had trouble working with Johnny in the past. Also, you know, everything. He doesn't help promote the movies. He really does very little to help promote the movies. Maybe it is just time to move on. So I totally get why they would want to move on from him. But at the same time, if they did one with him, I'd also be there to see it. So it's a tricky situation. It's a tricky situation. All right. Matt Thornton writes, have you seen the Netflix series, I Am Not Okay With This? It's like The Edge of 17 mixed with Carrie. I can't wait for season 2. No, somebody else brought that up the other day. About I'm Not Okay With This. And I said, I hadn't even heard of this show last week. But since then, I've heard a number of people talk about it and say it's quite good. So I have not seen it. I have not checked it out. But everybody, Matt, you are just the latest person to tell me about it that says you actually really like it. So at some point, I may have to check this thing out. All right, Leo Milmet writes, just wanted to say thank you for the countless hours of joy you provide for me and all my and all the viewers. My actual question is, which does Anne like better, Baby Yoda or Porgs? She actually likes Baby Yoda more. Now, my wife Anne, after The Last Jedi came out, she was obsessed with Porgs. And she even started an Instagram account called Porgstagram. She created an Instagram account called Porgstagram, where she would take a bunch of her Porg toys and take them around LA and photograph them in different scenarios in Los Angeles. So she was on that for a while. But Baby Yoda, much like a lot of people, Baby Yoda just kind of, I don't know, Baby Yoda just became it for her. It swept her as much as it swept the nation. So I think it's safe to say her favorite thing is more Baby Yoda over Porgs. All right, Leo Milmet writes, did you ever get to see the insanity that is Cats? I thought it was amazingly, stupendously bad in the best way possible. There truly is nothing like it. The awfulness of the plot and characters is truly hilarious. Ian McKellen is the GOAT. Jellicle Cat. I haven't, and I can't bring myself to do it. I'll probably watch it when it comes out on home video. But part of the reason I am fascinated to see it because of how bad everybody's saying it is, but I'm having a hard time bringing myself to do it because I love the director. Tom Hooper is one of the best directors working today. He really is. He is fantastic. He is just an incredible director. So I can't bring myself to go out and watch him make a really bad movie. I just can't bring myself to go see him doing a really bad movie. So I'll probably have to wait to check it out on home video, Leo, but I get what you're saying, dude. All right, Devontae Brown writes, Bond was literally delayed as you were talking. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit later, a little bit earlier, that they literally delayed it. It's now going to come out in November. Good move, bad move. You guys let me know. Leo Milmet writes, have you seen Sing Street? Yes, I have. Gem of a film, one of the best of the past decade to me, along with Boyhood, Manchester by the Sea, Marriage Story, Silence, Nebraska, Wolf of Wall Street, Social Network, and The Shape of Water. I believe, now I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think to me, even though I don't talk about it a ton, I think my favorite film of the past decade was probably, speaking of Tom Hooper, was the Tom Hooper film, King's Speech. King's Speech is a flawless movie. And that's really one too. A lot of great ones. Sing Street, we talked about that a lot on the show before. A lot of good ones on your list there, Leo. But to me, it's King's Speech. I really, really love King's Speech. Adam Turchetto writes, I always felt the writers for Jack Sparrow tried to write based on Johnny's performance after the first film instead of the original character concept. I don't think you're wrong, and I don't know that that was a bad idea. Like, you got to remember, Johnny Depp's incarnation of Jack Sparrow was not what they wanted originally. They wanted something totally different. And the Jack Sparrow we got in that first Pirates movie really was, I mean, in cooperation with the script, it really was a character of his making. And then from there, they realized the success of it. Pirates got nominated for Best Picture, I believe. Johnny Depp got nominated for Best Actor. A lot of people forget that. Depp got nominated for Best Actor at the Academy Awards for his portrayal of Jack Sparrow. And I think from them, they realized, oh, this is, not only did they base around his performance, the whole franchise became based around the Jack Sparrow character. Because Pirates 1 isn't about Jack Sparrow. It's about a number of characters. But after that first one, the franchise became about Jack Sparrow. It really did. And it's completely understandable why. It is one of the most memorable movie characters. But the way Johnny Depp portrayed that, he made one of the most memorable, instantly recognizable, and beloved movie characters. Even though most of the films are crap, after that first one, made one of the most memorable, beloved movie characters. John Ashford just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, John. I appreciate that, man. Costa Mazda writes, wouldn't pricing movie that way mess with box office? Oh, yeah, and that would also, I mean, it would take away the even playing field for box office reporting. It would take away the even playing field. But that's not the most important thing. That's not what's important. But that would be one of the unfortunate repercussions of that as well, going back to our earlier discussion, of course. Casper Arrow writes, my two absolute favorite actors of all time are Marlon Brando and Johnny Depp, both extremely talented, eccentric, and charismatic actors, but also troubled, self-destructive Hollywood outsiders. Unfortunately, it looks like their careers will end similarly. Well, you know what? Don't count Johnny Depp out yet. Look, every actor, look at Robert Downey Jr., for example, right? Robert Downey Jr. was a guy who the studios gave up on him twice, and that was his own fault. It was very, like, I remember he was starting to make his big comeback, and he became a series regular on Ally McBeal. And he was doing great. And then problems started happening. He wasn't showing up on set. They would find him coked out in his dressing room. It was affecting the show, and then they had to fire him again. And then he was out again. It was all his own fault. It was his own fault. But he got himself back on track later. He revived his own career, thanks particularly to the studio and Jon Favreau fighting for him to get him that Iron Man role. But a lot of people forget that when they gave him the Iron Man role, his name was Mud. Robert Downey Jr.'s name was Mud. And look where he is now. So I would say, while it's understandable because of his behavior and this thing, and we're not even talking about all the nonsense and mess going on with his marriage or his ex-marriage. None of that, just everything else. It's understandable that a studio like Disney or others are very apprehensive in working with him right now. But remember, Robert Downey Jr. was in as bad, if not worse of a place than Johnny Depp is now. And if Robert Downey Jr. can make that incredible self-turnaround, comeback, all that kind of stuff, there's no reason to say that Depp couldn't at some point as well. I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying there's no reason to believe that he can't. So I would still Casper hold out hope. I would still personally hold out hope for Johnny Depp, for his personal life, and what he can do with his career from here moving forward. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, Dan Peckett writes, God, I worship Paul Newman. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to me is what Star Wars is to you. I mean, it's so great. But again, to me, when I think of Paul Newman, and yes, that classic with Robert Redford, absolutely, but I still think of Cool Hand Luke. I still think of Cool Hand Luke, man. If you guys have never seen the Paul Newman classic, Cool Hand Luke, my God, do yourself a favor and watch yourself some Cool Hand Luke, because it's amazing. All right, last couple of questions here, guys. Deshaun writes, Helen Mirren, surprised about early role, beautiful. Oh, we're talking, okay, so somebody asked earlier, who was an actor that you've only known since they've been older that then you realize they're in something a long time ago that was different? So you're saying surprised early role, beautiful. Are you saying she's beautiful, but I'm not quite sure if it's the movie called Beautiful and that I'm not just thinking of it right now. I'm not sure, Jashawn, but Helen Mirren all day, every day. All right. Denmar95 writes, Matt Reeves released pictures of the new Batmobile. Really? Hold on a second. Let me do a quick look here. Let me see if I can see what it is you're talking about. Matt Reeves releases picture of the new Batmobile. Ooh, we'll talk about this tomorrow. That's an interesting look. Hold on a second. Let me pull this up here. This is an interesting look. Wow, that is not what I was expecting. I'll be honest with you. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. The back of the car looks really cool. You know what? I want to see a picture of that's more right from the front of the car. I want to see a picture of the car right from the front looking straight at it, because from this angle, this looks kind of weird. But, I don't know. I got to see it. We'll probably talk about this more on the John Campea Show, on the next John Campea Show, but that's really interesting. Anyway, thanks for bringing that up, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Listen, thank you to all of you who decided to take some of your time and spend it with us here today, talking with your fellow film fans about movies and all the great stuff going on. And a special thank you to all you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because by sending in the questions, you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here on the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you so much for that. Don't forget, guys, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow. Make sure you come back and join us. Make sure you click the thumbs up button. It helps all the videos that we do. And also, if you're not subscribed yet, click the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our YouTube channel as well. Okay, guys, that will do it for me for now. My name is John Campea. Thank you so much for being here, guys. You guys are awesome. My name's John, and until next time, bye-bye.